Welcome to the Southern U Podcast, brought to you by Darden Archery on the OKest Podcast Network, with your co-host, Matt Brock, Jeremy Ferguson, and Taylor McMurtry. If you're looking for all things land-related in the Southeast, you came to the right place. Whether it's real estate, habitat, wildlife, or just being outdoors, this is the place for you. Welcome to the Southern U. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Southern U Podcast, where we discuss all things land-related. We talk hunting, we talk land, we talk timber, we talk real estate, and anything else we can think of. We've known to chase a few rabbits. And if this is your first time listening to us, we appreciate you being here. Or if you're a long-standing listener, we really appreciate you as well. Today, this is episode number 51, I believe, and we have got a good one. We've had some of you guys reaching out. If you know, the temperatures are starting to drop across the Southeast. It's getting a little cooler. College football is on the horizon.
Who cares?
So is deer season, but more importantly. So everybody's kind of getting the itch to get outside, start slinging some arrows and start, pulling trail cams and seeing what all bucks we've got to hunt this season. So in that same spirit, we've had several of you guys reach out recently and ask us about fall food plots and, kind of preparation for that and what things to plant, the timing of it. Should you disc, should you drill, no-till drill, all the things. So we figured who better to have on the show, a returning guest and longtime sponsor, Mr. Al Tomechko of Vitalized Seed. Al, what's up, man?
Hey, good to have you. Yeah, the Buckeyes play on Saturday, so
I forget. I don't know what it is. Like, I don't associate you with like Ohio. I don't know why, but I think of you as like Kentucky or like Southern Illinois. Or
he is very proud that he's not in Kentucky.
Yeah, I'm just
I'm a proud Buckeye, buddy. I am a proud Buckeye.
Golly, man, now it's got me questioning everything in life. How did we get hooked up with a Buckeye? Like,
at least you didn't say Michigan, because I have a lot of guys, because Jared's out of Michigan, my partner, and a lot of guys.
That's right, yeah.
You're in Michigan, right? I'm like, whoa.
No.
You gotta
Not
stop
at
right
all.
There. But
Awesome.
I'm a pretty big college football fan, so I always watch some games. Don't watch very much pro, but I think it's more so just the timing of the season coming in. And like you were saying, it's bow season. You come in after a morning bow hunt, turn on a cow. I don't care who's playing. It could be SMU. Put it on. You have a bowl of chili, and you're like, "Where are you going to sit this afternoon?" Like, that is just the best.
It is.
So I'm excited for this time of year.
And I cannot believe the temps we're going to have for the first week of college football.
It's awesome.
Unbelievable, man. I mean, here.
Normally this time of year, we're heat index. Y'all have been seeing it the last few weeks. 110, 115.
Yes.
Just roasting. And I walked outside this morning, and I think it was in the 60s.
Yeah.
And I was like, what happened?
I know. I'm shocked, to say the least, because – Jeremy doesn't care about this, but Bama plays Florida State in Tallahassee, and I was thinking, man, they're going to cook, playing that far south. This time of year, it's going to be miserable, but, I mean, maybe a pretty nice weekend for football, man. So, anyways. But, Al, we do appreciate you taking time, and you guys don't know this listening, but we're shooting this right in the smack middle of the day. So we try to just fit these shows in whenever our schedules will allow. And so appreciate you taking the time, especially in the middle of the day. You could be getting something productive done,
I always love doing these things and connecting with people. So I appreciate you having me on.
Oh man, we appreciate it. And like I said, we are going to be talking food plot stuff, but if you have noticed, Matt is not here. Bray is not here, but Matt's not here. And You guys just say a prayer for Matt, to
Yeah,
say the least.
he needs it today. I can feel his blood pressure from here.
Yeah, he was supposed to have been taking the real estate exam
Yeah.
today, like as we speak, but for whatever reason, he's not allowed to take it. I don't really know
I'm
what's
not
going.
trying to throw the company under the bus, but the company that runs the testing program told him that the facility that he wanted to take, originally had not been set up in the last year to proctor the exams. So they did everything they needed to do. He got the green light sometime last week to take it there today, and gets there this morning at 8 a.m. and lo and behold, no, you're not allowed to take it there. So they've been fighting since 8 a.m. to try to figure out why exactly he's not, or why exactly, the proctoring location is not being allowed to proctor it for him. Nothing to do with Matt. It's just some kind of disconnect between the proctoring location and the company that actually provides the test. Yeah. So kind of a pain in the butt.
Oh yeah, for sure. So, but you are, of course, me and Jeremy are here with Al, so we're gonna have us a good show. Really excited to get schooled on all things fall food plot. Before we jump in, I do want to do our, bi-weekly or, shout outs for the show.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy, have you got anybody you want to shout out to start with? And then,
Yeah, I actually do. I got a couple of guys. One, Dr. Monty Ketchum, and the second, Dr. Lyle Kane, both at Andrew Sports Medicine. If you can't tell, I'm in a brace, and had to have shoulder surgery. Had a little minor accident, and just kind of topped off an old injury, and it was time to get it fixed. So got to visit Monty, who's a client of mine, and he kind of looked me over and said, "Yeah, you've got some significant issues. Let's get you down to see Dr. Kane for some surgical intervention." And here we are. So I am officially out for 9 to 12 weeks in this brace. So we'll see how it goes.
The saddest part of this whole story is there will be no arrows flung via Jeremy Ferguson this season.
Nope.
So whitetails can rest easy, knowing that he won't be killing them.
Yeah, I have not missed a bow season since I started bow hunting. So that was, I'm 40. I'm about to turn 42. So 31 years that I've not missed a bow season. And the last several years where I have not missed the trip out west bow hunting.
Oh yeah.
So I am gonna be in Kansas guiding, but there will be no bow in hand for me.
Nope. Still got one good arm to drag with, though.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to give a shout out real quick to a listener who's been a longtime supporter of ours. He shares our stuff, comments, sends in questions all the time, and actually, don't know if he would know this or not, but he is responsible for the inspiration of this particular episode because of some questions that he sent in. But I hope I'm saying this guy's name right. If I'm not, I apologize, man. Captain John P. Limley from Venice, Louisiana, Run and Gun Outfitters. He's a fishing captain there in Venice. Shout out to John, man. We really appreciate you supporting us and sending in questions and just kind of always digging into all the content that we've got put out there. We appreciate you, man. Looks like if you want to have a good time on the inshore or offshore in Louisiana, I would say, based on what I'm seeing on his Instagram right here, there's plenty of aquatic creatures there that he's pulling in the boat on a regular basis. So
there you
if
go.
you're in Louisiana, give him a shout. Al, you got anybody you want? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but do you have anybody you might want to shout out on your end?
Oh gosh, I would just say, I mean, really all of our customers that have been supportive. I mean, we've had a really, really strong fall already. We're obviously starting to shift more toward the southeast now. People are still buying seed. I mean, just trying to get it in before rain. And you can do that with these diverse mixes up until probably the middle of September in most of the Midwest and upper Midwest, and you'll reduce yield a little bit. But all of our customers, I mean, we just couldn't do it without supporters. They've just done a really good job. And then we recently had an opportunity. I won't give the gentleman's name, but he would know who he is. He's out of Missouri, and he actually reached out to me and gave me the opportunity to donate, Jared and I, and we donated 4 acres of seed. He runs a Christian group that hosts hunts for elderly people.
Cool.
So I just thought, like, man, my grandpa, if he would have still been around and had an opportunity to get into an elevated blind, with a wheelchair, so you could actually get in and hunt over a vitalized seed food plot, I'm like, that's pretty cool. So we just donated them a few acres. They have had a bunch of stuff already planted this year by the time he reached out, but they still had, I think it was 3 or 4 acres that they had to get in. So we got that out. So I really appreciate that gentleman giving us that opportunity, because that was just really a cool opportunity. I can't wait to get some pictures of hopefully some guys and gals maybe that have harvested a deer. So that's a really cool one. And that gentleman and his group out of Missouri, I'd like to thank them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no doubt, man. That's awesome. Well, Al, I guess with spirit of fall food plots on the brain, you ready to dive in and see what we can throw at you here?
Yeah, I guess so. I'm ready to give it a try.
Awesome. Well, first one, I think this is kind of, I don't want to call it redundant, but I do want to spend a little bit of time here, just talk about why fall food plots matter. If you're someone who is a landowner or even a long-term leaseholder and you're trying to maximize ground for wildlife, in this case, it's going to be whitetails. Why is a fall food plot something that people should care about or should be important?
Well, I mean, I think for hunters, it really could be simplified as I like to call it. It's your cash crop. I mean, for hunters, right? I mean, people go, well, why would I do a summertime crop, right? I'm not going to make a difference on a antler size. We could go down that whole rabbit hole, right? But from a fall food plot, I'm like, that's your cash crop as a deer hunter. If you want to harvest animals, yeah, you can hunt oak ridges and you can hunt secondary succession. You do all these other things, which are great. But there are a few things that are as attractive and easy to pattern as deer as a good quality green food source in most of the whitetails range. So just from a huntability perspective on a property, whether you have I tell people all the time, I have properties that are 10 to 20 acres permission, little honey hole permission spots, and they can produce, all the way up to, the main farm that we manage is 400 acres, which is pretty decent size for Ohio standards. But I always tell people on all of those, like, we're putting in food plots. It helps us to pattern deer. Now, in addition, if you have goals of like trying to manage a deer herd and you want to give them good high quality food through wintertime, you're looking at soil health conditions. You want to make sure that soil is not going to be erosion prone. So you have a constant root growing, a constant plant photosynthesizing all through wintertime into dormant season, coming out of dormant season into spring for spring turkey, right? Depending on the species in which you're using. Those are all additional benefits, right, of that fall food plot. So I think it really depends on, the scale that landowner has to work with, and are you trying to manage deer? Are you trying to hunt deer, or a mixture of both? But I mean, there's very few things you can do that are going to impact your hunting directly as growing a good quality food source. And I mean, I'm not saying I cut a ton of timber. That's like number one, managing timber, overall habitat. But just from a hunting perspective, a good quality food source really can pay dividends from your encounters and opportunity to harvest an animal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you said something there where you're talking about like fall food plots, particularly to harvest a deer. I've kind of got a follow-up question there of like the difference between a fall plot trying, what we would even around here call kill plots versus just a plot that is there for long-term herd health. Like, is there a difference between the two things, or are they virtually the same things in your eyes?
I certainly think there's differences. I mean, typically in my mind, if you're looking to try to feed the deer herd, you're going to it's just a matter of scale, really. I mean, you're looking at how many acres can you put in? Is it 5? Is it 10? Is it 30? And then also you're trying to maximize, which, I'm biased on this, but you're trying to maximize not just what you can feed the deer, but for what duration you can feed the deer. So when you use a highly diverse fall mix to try to feed the deer on let's say a 10 acre or 20 acre assessment of a property or planting of a property, and you have things growing from the time you plant it all the way through next spring, right? You're feeding that herd that entire time. Now you want to make sure that ruminant animal has the woody browse and all the things that you guys talk about. Matt does a lot of great videos on fire. Like, all that stuff, Jeremy too. And that's all obviously critical because that's going to give them that diversity to balance that rumen. But you're literally then feeding those deer from the time you plant it all the way through, and you're feeding them a very diverse mix or diverse diet based on diversity of mix. With that being said, those kill plots can still be the same mix, but I just think you got to be realistic. Like I always tell people, you plant a quarter acre food plot, you're probably going to have really good encounters, right? And you're certainly not going to hurt the deer, but you could mathematically do how much does a deer have to eat a day, how much tonnage is this producing, and you could come up with a statistical analysis of like, well, how much am I truly impacting a deer, or if you want to extrapolate that out to the deer, how much am I really impacting around a quarter acre versus 2 acres versus 5 acres? But I think every little bit helps, and that's really to me the difference. I plant the same mix other than like logging trails and stuff. I pretty much plant the same mix, which is our carbon load, which is a highly diverse fall mixture in all my plots, whether it be a kill plot or whether it's a feeding plot, or a destination food source is another term a lot of folks use. And then I try to plant on my trails in something like diverse clover mixes, clover and oats and things like that to help with erosion and just add a little bit more food on the landscape for the deer. But that's how I define them differently. I'm not really looking to change my planting methods. It's more so just setting your goals as a land manager.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like in my eyes, I guess the only thing that and I could be wrong, like totally wrong on this, but it's really just the size of it. If you've got a monster, whatever to say, a 20-acre piece that you try to plant in something, well, like I guess with a rifle, it's probably still huntable and you probably still have some success or something. But with a bow in your hand, they kind of need to be small, or at least relatively small, so that you can maximize maximize your encounters. But I don't know that there's a difference in what you plant necessarily.
I don't change it up either. On all of our properties that we're managing, carbon load is the backbone. There's some straight clover plots that's managed, in certain instances, especially depending on what soil type it is. But by and large, it's all drilled with carbon load.
And I would say on that too, like, not that I want to sell, less seed or whatever, but I'm very realistic. And I would tell you somebody, if you have, let's just use that 20 acre perfectly flat field, and you got your box blind up in the corner, and you put in 2 or 3, 3-foot diameter exclusion fences, and you get out there the next year and you go, there's no difference between outside and inside the exclusion fence. To me, if I was doing, I go, what if we cut this field to 10 acres and we make the back a tree planting, or we do a fall or winter disking to create forbs, like to add more diversity to the landscape for the whitetails and still have a high quality food plot. I'm not saying to get rid of that, but you might not need that many food plot acres in that case. Now, I would say 95% of the people I talk to, you either need to plant more food, shoot more deer. Like that's and I would say by plant food, I use that loosely because that could be with a chainsaw, that could be with fire, that could be literally planting, food plots, or likely you need to do a mixture of all three. But in the case, and it's rare, but it does happen where somebody's just, who doesn't love being on a tractor? I mean, they're tractor happy, they want to plant. But I do think you get to a point of diminishing returns if the deer are simply like, you got a 30-acre food plot, and it's like, wait a second here, we probably should have something else there, be it secondary succession. So I would keep that in mind, and that's where I tell every single person I talk to, put up a 3-foot, whether it's chicken wire, go to Tractor Supply, get 14 gauge wire, cut it out, 3-foot diameter. That's all you need, a T-post. And look inside, outside that cage. What does that look like? And you can determine a lot of information from that really simple little cage to say, am I planting enough? Am I not planting enough? Am I harvesting enough does? Am I not? Especially you start laying that over trail camera data, and then also like native browse analysis. You go and look at every pokeberry, looks like it was taken out by a bush hog. You're like, huh, wow, that's tore up, right? Like, okay, we got to shoot more deer, because if you only rely, Jeremy, I love your take on this, but if you only rely on observations from hunting, you're never going to 90% of guys are never going to think they have enough deer. They're just, oh, we don't have enough. The deer, it's not like it used to be. Like, and I can assure you, there's more deer on the landscape.
Yeah. Yes. And I caution people, as far as doing anything permanent to a large opening as far as, planting trees in fields, unless you're doing it simply to break them up, to create some diversity, not just take up land, to make the field smaller. A perfect example, I had a track in northeast Alabama in the mountains, and in the fall, you didn't hold a ton of deer. Acorn started falling. It's big woods. It's like PA hunting. Deer are really scattered through the mountains. But in the springtime, when there's crops in the valleys, all the deer they're just shoved in the valleys. They've changed their home ranges, and you can go in with a planting on a large field and be wiped out in the spring. And in the fall, you put up exclusion cages, and you're like, oh, okay, well, maybe there's not as many deer here as we thought. Well, they're there on the landscape. They've changed their home range. They spread out a little bit. And then we planted one of the properties that we put on the podcast quite a bit. It's a project of mine that's been going on for several years, right on the Tennessee River, and the habitat is primo. I mean, there's not anything you can do any better than what we've got going on from a habitat perspective. And it's not a huge track. It's 530 acres or so. And we've got between 35 and 40 acres, I don't remember exactly, of fields on that place. And we planted a different mix, throughout. We planted a lot of the Nitro Boost in some of the smaller fields because there's a lot of deer. And then we tested the mossy oak beans in a 10-acre field. We tested the eagle beans in a 10-acre field. We tested a lot of other things. And if it was a broadleaf, it was wiped out. Whether it was in the Nitro Boost, whether it was mossy oak, whether it was eagle, they were all wiped totally out. So that immediately jumped at me as, we do have to kill deer. And I've known that, but I didn't have, some pretty pointed evidence to get the landowners to shoot some deer. But when you put that much food on the landscape and it gets wiped out, especially on a tract that size, it's not really that large to have, 35 to 40 acres of field just destroy in the springtime with the kind of rain that we've had. Time to change gears. So I in the South, and I'm strictly talking the South. If you've got open ground, think real hard before you transition it out of open ground into something that's going to be costly to renovate back.
Great point.
Because we by and large we have too many deer.
Yeah,
Even in places that folks think they don't have that many deer, there's too many deer on the landscape from a deer herd health standpoint. Now, from a enjoyment factor of hunting, maybe not, but that's a line you've got to walk. You've got to figure out what you're willing, to take. Are you willing to take a little less healthy deer, a little smaller rack size, a little less recruitment rate on your does? If you can stand that and that's what you want to do, then fine. You can run too many deer. I don't advise it, but yeah, it's a fine line to walk.
Yeah, and I think that's totally another topic for another day. But I think
Absolutely.
also the thing that is tough is then you start shooting deer, and then you realize that you have good habitat, and then your farm recruitment rate goes up. So you have to maintain that.
It's
And people,
cyclical.
yeah,
It's
people go,
just a
well,
constant.
I shot 10 or I shot 20 does. It's like, yeah, but in 2 years, you're going to all of a sudden start, because we've started to see that twins, triplets, it's like the more does you shoot,
Mm-hmm.
the higher farm recruitment you start to see. And the more does that are even getting pregnant, right? You're not having these single ones that just, for whatever reason, the population was so high they couldn't all even get bred. So then you kind of, after a year or two, it's like, holy cow, we got to wax them again or we're going to be in trouble, right? So it is that balance. And I think I've always been super interested in that whole science and stuff and trying to balance that. Like my cousin and I talk a lot and go, how many deer do you have to see to be happy? Like if you see 5 deer sit, is that enough? Do you need to see 20? And he's always been like, if I see 4 or 5, like I'm fine with that, but some people, they want to see 20, 30 deer sit. And
Yeah.
to me, after about 5, unless it's a big antlered buck, like I don't get any additional enjoyment, I would say.
Yeah.
And
And I think part of it is like just as a hunter, it feels good to know that you're at least in the game. You know,
that's right.
if you're sitting somewhere over and over and over and you're just not seeing anything, it's like either we don't have deer or I just suck. Like, you know,
Yeah.
and I hope
Yeah.
that with the experience that I've got in the woods and the time that I've spent doing this, hopefully I don't suck, or at least not that bad. Hopefully it's that there's not as many deer. But I mean, I have been in clubs before where they've literally changed the rules the following year because okay, this is our rules for harvest. This is what we're going to allow people to take. And then that season goes by, and some of the regulars, or especially some of the
Mm-hmm.
older retired guys that want to go sit in a shooting house and overlook a big green field, go, oh my gosh, man, we're just not seeing any deer. There's no deer here. We're killing too many. We got to change the rules. And it's like, well, I hunted the same spot. I just went 75 yards into the timber instead of sitting on that green field, and I saw as many as I could. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Deer
Yeah.
everywhere. So I think it's if it's both and not either or. I guess if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
That's right.
You know, it's kind of a combo effect there.
Well, that's the biggest thing I want to clarify because anytime you do a podcast, I'm sure you all can relate. You go, man, I wish I would have clarified this. Is I think both Jeremy and myself and Taylor's mentioned like taking a lot of data before just blindly doing any type of decision. You know,
Sure.
I mean, really making sure you feel confident, talk to neighbors, do those things. But certainly when it gets circling back to food plots, that little 3 foot, that's such an easy thing. And by the end of the year, you
Mm-hmm.
can look and say, okay, now I at least have an idea.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
Sure.
So
That's right.
Yeah. Data is number one, and it's far too often the one thing that people don't do is
Yeah.
they don't track what they're doing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, like in many things in life, you make decisions based on emotion.
Yes.
You know, that usually doesn't work out too well. Um, the second question here, let's talk about kind of like seed and forage choices. So, obviously, I mean, this is not really, I didn't mean to like lob up a softball for you here because we know that you guys sell mixes and blends and things like that. But what are kind of the best fall, specifically to the fall species like brassicas or cereal grains, clovers, that sort of thing for the fall?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm a huge fan of mixes. We sell, monocultures, if you will, or I mean, they're still mixes of clovers and stuff, but relatively speaking, it's a monoculture. I mean, it's the same species or family of species. But my favorite is diverse mixes like our carbon. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason is not, yes, my focus when I started writing blogs, well before I ever planned on starting a company, was I love shooting deer, but was really around soil health, right? And soil health practices. And I'm an avid gardener and doing all those things as well. And then kind of deer was like secondary. And then obviously as we launched into a company and wanted to also appeal to more and more deer hunters, we picked the best species we could, and then also forage quality species versus just tuber or just the cheapest quality species, and then the ratios of those species. So all of that to say, the reason I like diverse mixes like our carbon load is because you have your fall triticale, your winter wheat, your rye, and grain. Well, people go, well, why do you want, my deer like rye grain? Yeah, but the next guy will tell you my deer like triticale. And the
Mm-hmm.
next guy would say, my deer hate triticale, right? And a lot of that probably has to do with something that's going on either biologically or chemically in the soil, that how is that plant assimilating nutrients, the plant physiology, etc. But it's a lot easier to just say, okay, well, we're going to give you a triticale, winter wheat, rye grain, cereal rye, same thing. Some people call it either or and oats, right? Well, those are all really good quality grains. They're going to overwinter in most of the whitetails range, maybe like really North Minnesota or something, but nobody, I don't think, well, you might have a couple listeners from Canada or something, but for the most part,
Yeah.
in your area, they're certainly going to overwinter. So they're going to feed deer, they're going to feed the soil, right? Then you have a species like I call them kind of ice cream species, super attractive, good early bow season. That's things like, buckwheat, oats do tend to actually be one of those as well. You're going to have your winter peas, right? Austrian winter peas. Most people are very familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we use annual clovers. Well, annual clovers are great because they grow quick, they fix nitrogen, they balance out your grain component of a mix, and they're going to stay green and lush, not just through deer season, but next spring, which is like I think Jeremy even this past year did a couple really nice videos for us. He's like, just look at this. Because that's really when it shines. I probably get more texts. I get a lot of texts during hunting season, guys. Oh, look, I killed my buck, my target buck, or my son got their first deer. It's amazing. But in the spring, people are like, what is in this? Because they just can't believe the tonnage that comes out of spring or out of winter, excuse me, into the spring. And that's where your clovers go. And then, of course, you have your brassicas, which your brassica species, we do things quite a bit more unique than others, and that's that we have about 10% brassicas in our mix. The reason is deer tend to like them, and in most of the whitetails range. Also, it's very good for breaking up compaction and things like that. Now, where we go different is we use things like Winfred forage brassica. Why is that important? Well, we started this conversation off talking about a lot of people are planting small kill plots. They have a lot of deer. They're trying to manage these things. Winfred forage brassicas is an expensive, top quality forage brassica that's made to be browsed, and then it's just like an eagle forage bean, puts on another leaf, very similar. It'd be a lot cheaper just to put in a whole bunch of purple top turnips.
Right.
But I always say I'm not going to sell anything that I won't use in my own. So when you have a mix of this much diversity, then we put in some chicory in there too. Again, that really shines the next spring coming out of winter, puts down a big deep taproot. So whether you're in sandy soils and you're looking to pull nutrients up, or you're looking to, and it's also deer love it, or you're looking in hard compacted soils to kind of break some hardpan, chicory does a great job of that. So that's another one that we put in there for attractiveness. So when you add all of those species together, and remember, deer are concentrate selectors. So when you do that versus our plain old brassica mix, you never clean the table. I have fields that are 4.8 pH were red pine, half Norway spruce, all the top lower than 2% organic matter, which relative to our soil type in Ohio, 18 CEC, that's a really bad ratio of organic matter to clay content, basically. Low pH, and I will have deer in that field all the time. And this spring, I had clovers in there that were 2 foot tall. And this field's only been planted now. This is the third time. So we're building it. We're getting it going now. I'm getting lime down. We're doing the right things. So the deer were not able to wipe that field out. If I would have went in there and just put down a bunch, even our own brassica mix, we do it because people want it. They do their own mix or whatever. So you have to kind of offer what your customer wants. And it's a great mix. But if I go around and put a monoculture of brassicas in there, there'd be nothing left.
Right.
It just, I mean, I've done it. I did it for years, and you plant a big field and you get big turnips and radish and you think this looks great. And then in January, you have nothing left and you get rain and you get snow, you get ice, depending on where you're at in the country. And what you're left with is a perfect weed seed bank for weeds and also compaction.
Yeah.
Because that rain's just pounding that ground with no green cover, no living roots. So that's what we want to avoid. And that's where those mixes really do a good job. I tell people all the time, your case would be a little bit different depending on the season, but like in Ohio, in November, we'll get a day, almost always 70 degrees, it'll hit randomly. And you can literally see those diverse mixes green up, especially like the grains and clovers.
Yep.
Whereas like, again, if that was just a monoculture of brassicas or just standing soybeans, like you want to hunt over standing soybeans in Iowa, late muzzle, there's probably very few things that are as consistent as that for shooting a big deer. But put some, if it's mine or you want to put something over the top, whether it's with a drone, whether it's one of these blowers, like I have done some videos with the extreme blower product. You feel that, do something to add that diversity, because those deer are going to want to go in there. They're going to want to eat the beans, and then they're going to want to balance that rumen. I did a whole video on our YouTube. I interviewed an animal scientist, and she does, I don't want to say doesn't know anything about deer, but her focus is cattle. But I wanted to understand ruminant biology, at least to the best of my ability to comprehend it. And she went through this, and like when you hear her talk and you think of it in the concept of a deer, it's like, why would I ever want just one species in a 2, 3, 4 acre field?
Right.
It makes, I mean, it really, from how a deer eats and and they want to pick and move, and you'll see that in these diverse mixes. So again, I'm biased. I understand that, but that's my take on doing this for a long time and talking to a lot of people, have a lot of people planning why you want to look at these diverse mixes.
Yeah, and I want to bring something up on the diverse mixes. It's on the priority list for 99% of your customers. It's way down the list. For me and Matt and Bray and other folks that are so head over heels into the wildlife stuff, it's a lot further up the list. And even for me, it's even further up the list because of my wife, because she really likes birds and insects and butterflies and all that. But I mean, and I've been putting out videos for 3 or 4 years now, using y'all stuff on my farm to renovate a couple of fields that were previously a motocross track. The number of species of migratory songbirds, the amount of pollinators that we have on our farm is unbelievable throughout the year. We were sitting out there the other day. I'm pretty immobile right now, and wife wanted to get out and check cows and all that, and so I got out, and the number of birds that we've never seen prior on our farm that are in that nitro boost mix out there now, it's unbelievable, Al. I mean, really, it's crazy. And I mean, as a matter of fact, we've had birds show up that I even sent them into the state because supposedly they don't come through here. And
Wow.
we've had some sightings and kept up with them. And obviously pollinator health is very, very important, for many, many reasons. But just the amount of food, there's always something pollinating. You mentioned the chicory, and my wife's got no idea what chicory is, outside of the confines of what, is it tea or something that
Coffee.
coffee.
Yeah.
But I spilled a little bit of y'all's mix right under my shop, under the eave, and all of it started coming up, and I didn't want grass and all that, coming up. But the beans died out pretty quick, but the chicory has subsisted, and the number of flowers that are on chicory plants when they mature, and the amount of insect and bird activity around it is unbelievable. I mean, it's really crazy. So that's another reason, for me to go heavy in diverse mixes is it. We shouldn't be focused on just deer when we're doing all these things. From a wildlife standpoint. I mean, obviously we're not, but the amount of good that those diverse mixes and those species do for non-target species, it's phenomenal. And of
Yeah,
course, I've been using it for forage, but it's for cattle. And let me tell you something. I mean, even for cattle, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I'll keep a partial pallet at my shop after we sell out of what we've got. I hold back, and I'll drill 25 to 30 acres, myself of different things, and the vast majority of it will end up being the carbon load, and that's what I use for winter grazing.
Yeah, we've had quite a few, as we've grown as a business, we've been so lucky to do so, and we've done more and more in kind of the cattle and even row crop agriculture because it is growing. People are starting to realize that you mitigate the risk of I mean, from a food plot perspective, you also mitigate the risk of total crop loss, right, or
Yeah.
total food plot loss, because you're not going to just if you just do brassica after brassica after brassica, yeah, from a nutrient depletion perspective, you can have that, but you could also have nematode, parasitic issues, so when you have these diverse mixes, you kind of naturally, I use them in between my rows of tomato plants. And I'll tell people, I'll show my son, he's 4 years old. I'll say, hey, look at these toads, or look at these little frogs that are in here. I go, you see why we don't have too many aphids? Or we have a couple, frogs are in there, they're eating the aphids. There's carpenter ants that are walking through, and I've watched them before where I've planted, there's sunflowers growing in between my rows of tomatoes. And I've watched where aphids have been up on the sunflowers and watched carpenter ants go up, grab them, and go back down.
Yeah.
And naturally, I'm not saying you never have to use like a neem oil, but naturally you create these ecosystems that are really doing a lot for you.
That's really cool.
And it's through the diversity of things. And not to mention even compaction. I did a video where I have a fescue lawn next to the garden, and I have a penetrometer, which is just a fancy word for compaction reader. And I stuck in, and I'm like pushing, you can see in the video, and I got probably 6 inches down in the fescue. which is pretty good because it
Yeah,
used to be like I could barely get anything done. And I go into my garden and I sink that probe 27 inches down there. I'm doing nothing but use cover crops in there, our nitro boost and carbon load. And if the whole probe's 27 inches, it goes straight all the way down.
that's cool.
So not only is it good for, I mean, just imagine the nutrients that are getting pulled up there. And again, the deer are going to know that, your other species are going to know that, and you really mitigate your risk too. So that's why we really love it, and we're big advocates of that from a soil health perspective and also from a wildlife perspective.
Yeah, and you mentioned the gardening. I am not an avid gardener at all. One, don't have time. Two, I'm not a heavy vegetable eater anyway. I'm not a really heavy eater of anything these days. But one of the spots that I've shared on film 2 or 3 times is where I plant corn. Sweet corn for my family and neighbors and all that. They all come over and pick. I fought with pigweed really really bad early on. So I had started using Zidua to try to get rid and combat the pigweed. But the last 2 years we've planted the carbon load in the fall, and all I would do is one time I tried not terminating and just planting green, and then this last year I still planted green, but I terminated as well. I just sprayed Gly over it. Neither time. So now I've tested both ways, and I don't think I'll have to terminate anymore. I've had a tremendous corn crop, no fertilize, and no pigweed problem. The reduced tillage is why I'm not having a pigweed problem, because you go out there and kick the ground, you're going to get pigweed even though I've fought with it for 2 or 3 years. But the weed suppression and the nutrient deliverables from the nitrogen standpoint that's thereafter is unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Al, I'm gonna play devil's advocate here because I know we've talked about diverse mixes. Is there ever a scenario where you do plant a straight monoculture or something where it's like I just want to plant this field in clover, or I just want? Is there ever a time where that's a good idea?
There's always, I mean, yeah, I never really speak in absolutes. I guess that's just part of I mean, I really like
It
science
depends.
Yeah.
and it kind of, I like to really take a step back. But I would say, yes, there's times. In knee jerk, I would say like logging trails. Like I like, we have a clover chicory notes blend that I use on all my logging trails. And I'm not, amending those or anything like that. I'm just trying to get something established to reduce erosion. Right. But I mean, certainly the deer are in there coming out of a clear cut and they're eating on it. I mean, it's not nothing, but I'm not like overly concerned there. So that's one area where I'm like, yeah, let's do a clover. I have a permission piece of ground that the gentleman lets me put in some strips of carbon load, but then he also has honeybees. So he really wants me to put in perennial clover for
Yep.
him, as well as some pollinator type
Mhm.
mixes. So like, well, pollinator is super diverse, but for the perennial clover kind of on, these got like a ditch that runs drainage ditch and things like that. Well, of course, that's another good example. The other time I would say would be in a case like Jeremy was saying, where people have gone in and right, wrong, or indifferent, they kind of dug their heels in and I'm going to use tillage, and then they have a really bad pigweed or something else problem. And that's where I think you do have to maybe consider like a Roundup Ready variety of like a soybean or something, just for a year or two to try to get it under control.
That's right.
Um, I have had some people do that with the nitro boost, and then I'm not the best on all the herbicides. I try to keep it pretty simple. I'm not against it. I just don't know. There's so much chemistry out there. It's hard to kind of keep up. But like I've had it up. Some people use the nitro boost, and I think it's like quinclorac, which you can use on
Yeah.
switchgrass. They can spray that, like if you have like say foxtail. So it'll kill basically the foxtail, but it won't really kill your grain sorghum and stuff. But or at least it shouldn't. But that's kind of gets a little bit more difficult because the timing is supposed to be when the foxtail is only like
Yes.
4 or 8 inches. And a lot of guys, as you know, they plant something and then to try to come back, they might not get back for 2 months. So all of that to say, that's when I sometimes will consider like, well, maybe you need to do a year or two of a Roundup Ready product, at least for that spring. But then I would still use a heavy diverse mix like the carbon load in the fall.
Yes.
And then the key to that is you can't go back in like Jeremy. You cannot go then back in and run the disc through there
Mm-hmm.
because you're just gonna. I mean,
You just bring it all back up.
you're not gonna disc your way out of pigweed,
Right.
just like you're not gonna roller crimp your way out of a fescue pasture. People don't like when I say that, but there's certain methods for doing things, and you have to understand like realistically what are the goals going to be. You're not going to roller crimp your way out of fescue pasture, and you're not going to disc yourself out of pigweed.
Right.
At least, I mean, if somebody can prove me wrong, I'd love to look at the research, but typically you're not going to. So those are cases where if you're going to implement a prescription like that, then be very cognizant of what is the future going to hold, because you're going to be right back to where you didn't want to be if you go back in there with a disc or a plow.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And likewise, with that being said about disking and no-till, and I don't know if you're going to get to that or not, Taylor, but I'll just mention it. I just had this talk with I interviewed a soil scientist. I'm going to end up being releasing that probably early September because got to do some editing. You guys know that game. But one of the things we talk about is like if you're going to go in there and disc it, pull a soil test and make sure you get your phosphorus, your lime, all that, get it into that root zone. Don't go in and, oh, I'm feeling like disking today and disc, and then be like, oh man, I got 5 ppm of phosphorus in the soil. Well, yeah, you can unlock a lot through biology, but if you're going to go in there and disc, you might as well get the lime and the gypsum and everything else that you want to get and get it down
That's
into
right.
that root zone, and then fit the field, and then go into a no-till program if you want from there. But
Yeah.
those are some things that I would say if you're going to do either a monoculture and or a heavy disking program, make sure to take those steps. That's my opinion, at least.
Yep.
Gotcha. I gotcha. That's good stuff here. Moving on, let's do maybe like some soil prep and planting basics. Like, assuming we've all talked about this a lot, like, so I don't want to spend a ton of time. We all know, like, before you do anything, you need a soil test. Figure that out first. Once you've kind of just established what your soil needs, obviously you make preparations to amend the soil amendments and those sort of things. But assuming that's already done, from there, what's kind of I guess the simple step or simple prep that hunters can, maybe on a limited budget and that sort of thing. What needs to happen next, or how does that process need to progress in planning their fall plot?
Yeah, that's a great
Post soil
question.
test, I guess.
Yeah, great question. So yeah, assuming you have the soil test, and even with the soil test, I always tell people you still have to, like anything, you got to set your goals.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I got guys who pull a soil test, and then I'll do an evaluation, and they're like, "Well, I don't really want to spend that much money, or I only have this much." I'm like, "Okay, then let's prioritize for year one. Let's focus on lime, right?" Like, so
Yep.
even with that, like, start there. The biggest thing on soil testing, and I won't go too down the rabbit hole, but try to the best of your ability or reach out to somebody to understand how nutrients move. Because like if you're like, okay, I got, to your point, I'm going to broadcast, I got an acre, I got my seed, I got my broadcast spreader, I'm just going to give it a boost. I'm going to go put triple 13 down, and all I'm doing is broadcasting. That phosphorus that you're spending money on, it's not going to move. It's going to sit in the for probably 10, 15, 20 years, maybe, if you're lucky. Maybe some shallow cover crops might help move it, but it's really not a good investment. You'd be much better off going with a natural product or considering a foliar application or something, at least in those first couple of years. So trying to understand that. But all of that to say, I would say figure out how you want to plant. So I have some people who are like, I am not touching herbicide. I don't care if, what science says or doesn't, I don't want to use it. Okay. So we have to decide. So you're going to till, or, what's there now? Okay. Let's say this gentleman wants to till. Okay. Well, do you have to till where the tiller's buried, or can we till it like a 1/4 inch, right? And I tell people, Google conservation tillage. There's a bunch of people at Rodale Institute. There's a bunch of Soil Health Institute articles out there and visual things that you can see where you look behind yourself on the tractor or the ATV and you see 60% of the soil still covered, right? So you're just enough to stuff it up, get the seed down. And then I always recommend, if you're going to do that, is make sure you're packing, right? You
Mm-hmm.
got to push that seed down, drag it, pack it with the ATV tires. I've had people use their truck or vehicle to pack the stuff down, but try to push that seed down into the soil.
Yeah. Got to have that contact.
Yeah. Now, if you're looking to do just the spray and broadcast or broadcast and mow. Again, it depends what's there. So if you come to me and go, hey, Al, I got an acre of a pasture. It's primarily orchard grass and fescue, and you're just going to broadcast and mow into it, your rate of success is going to be diminished.
Mm-hmm.
Just I don't care what variety you're putting down, you're not going to have that much success because there's so much competition, not just what you see above ground, but even in the root zone. I mean, the root mass. So you're going to have to either use an herbicide or use some tillage or something to try to outcompete that. Now, if you're like, hey, it's a blank slate, that's when you really comes into when we got a time with some rain or the best of our ability. So you really try to make like a almost like a checklist. You know, what are my goals? What are the tools I have? And you know, what's my timing? And from there, the last thing I would say is adjusting seeding rates. Because every one of those first decisions that you make, kind of going down that decision tree, is going to impact how is my seed rate going to be impacted. So if you're just broadcasting and mowing, for example, let's say you had a stand of soybeans, and you're going to go in there and broadcast and mow or just broadcast over the top. Well, you're going to have to increase that seed rate because you're going to have stuff that's sitting on a soybean leaf that a bird comes by and pay, right? Like you're going to just lose some to predation. Whereas if you're going in and doing a total tillage and fitting the seed bed and putting it down and using a cultipacker, you probably get away with a little bit, lesser on the range of seed rate. And then obviously with a drill, you can really fine tune that into, I've made adjustments up or down a pound or two just because I'm, neurotic and I want to make sure things are exactly how I want them to be. But I would say that those are some of the tips that I would give to somebody who's just starting out so you can understand seeding rate and things like that. Oh, and the last one I would say for broadcast, because that's a lot of people. If you're doing an acre, take a half acre rate. So if it's our carbon load, take 22 and a half pounds and get that 22 and a half pounds evenly spread on the whole acre. I don't care if you got to run, if you got to walk, if you got to crawl, like get the 22 and a half pounds on that acre. Then start on the other side from where you started and use the other 22 and a half pounds and go the opposite direction and get that. That will ensure that you're getting even spread.
Yep.
If you're using a drill, calibrate it.
Amen. And guys, good Lord, if you rent a drill from your local co-op, seed conservation district or soil conservation district, whoever, clean it out, check it for proper function. I've rented many, and going into a place that we've done a lot of work to get things right, and pull a drill out there and get to the barn or the shop and look down in there and it's fescue or it's ryegrass. You're like, oh Lord, have mercy. This is the last thing we want introduced here. So spend time, and I would generally say off-site of properties that are well managed to do maintenance, clean those drills out, make sure everything's working properly.
Yeah, I had a customer call me and they said that a spider had made a nest inside of one of the drop tubes, and they just poured and went. And then they got to the end of the day and they realized that something seems off. I don't know. They opened the box and they could see in the one cup, it said so they had a whole row missing on all their planting for the day. And there's little things, if you just calibrate like that day or the day before, well, you'll see when you get under the drill, it dropping out of every hole. If not,
Exactly.
put a hose down in there, do something, not a water hose, but a vacuum hose, do something to try to ensure that those, tubes aren't clogged, or double disc. If somebody before you ran through a bunch of stuff after it had been mowed and they clog up double disc, I've seen mud packed in. Those are little things that like a screwdriver in a few minutes of your time will save you a big headache if you are renting a drill, and some things to check if you're renting a drill.
Yep. And if you own one, we're still working on some places that are new, so we're still doing some primary tillage to get things leveled, get fields the way we need them, terraced so that we don't have erosion problems. A 5-minute shower that's pretty heavy will absolutely clog up your drills. So if you get a little moisture, check it, get off every few feet, because you're going to, especially in clay content like we are here, it's going to grab and it's going to build and it's going to plug. So a lot of times if you get just a tad of moisture on fresh dirt, you probably need to call it for at least a few hours.
I know, what was it? I guess it was that drill where you made the video of having to take a hammer and kind of tap those, and then with a water hose
Oh
shoot down
yeah,
in it or whatever. That was,
and look, that was exactly what happened.
yeah,
We had rebuilt a waterfowl impoundment, so we had in areas that we were, cutting and filling to get it back level to ensure proper drainage. We had bare dirt, and it came a shower. The rest of the field that we're planting that's got vegetation on it, man, I was rocking. I didn't have any problem. As soon as I hit that bare dirt, I looked back and I could see, that the packing wheels didn't look uniform, and I was like, that's a problem. So I got off, and I'd only gone, 75 yards, 100 yards, so I hadn't covered much ground, and got off, and it had plugged, 5 or 6 of the rows on the drill. I'm like, yep, okay, this is going to be an issue. I got to shut down for a little while.
yeah.
So I went, cleaned it all out. We waited till the next day, and then started back and finished it right up. But you just got to know when to call it. Sometimes you just can't force it.
Yeah, and there's little tips that I think no matter what you're doing or how you're planting or equipment you're using that you'll find. Like we have a lesser expensive drill, and if I couldn't do it without my buddy who's just super mechanically inclined, we made a ton of changes and stuff. It's a set little 6 foot Tar River. We've added a bunch of weight to it. It's fine.
Yeah.
We can get in some tight spots, but we've made a lot of changes, and we like to plant green. And one of the things you'll find on that particular unit is when you're planting green, and even some friends who have like the Great Plains. So they have if you're using the 3-point on a Great Plains, their drive wheel's kind of in the teeter-totters in the center.
Yep.
Well, if you're planting green, it's awesome. I mean, I don't ever plan on planting any other way, but sometimes those drive wheels can get bound up. So like that's another thing. Like every once, just keep a pair of like loppers or pruning shears with you, and every acre, 2 acres, 3 acres, whatever, you want to get a drink of water, stretch your legs for a minute, jump out and check that. And little things like that, a thing of pruning shears and a longer screwdriver, you can bust a lot of that out, and boy, it'll save you a headache. Because if you don't, sometimes there's so much pressure there. I mean, one, you can have a lot of heat build up. You can blow bearings out and all sorts
Absolutely.
of stuff. So that would be another tip. Like we've kind of learned that over the years as well. So it's always a touch and go, plant slower is better than faster, I'd say too. That's another little tip. We plant in our terrain around 2.5 to maybe 3 miles an hour. That's about max. It's pretty rugged terrain, obviously if you're a little flatter, you might be able to go a little faster, but those are little tips for planting fall food plots if you are renting a drill or you have your own.
Yep. And I tell people, because we get asked a lot of questions on, what drill's best. You start spending money, or what implement's even best. There's plenty out there that will fit most use cases that don't have to be expensive. But you do have to understand that each implement has some type of limitation. And before you purchase, you need to understand those limitations. The biggest question we get is between a Furminator versus a true no-till drill, or something min-till, something like that. And Furminator's great, but they have uses that they fit better than others. And then occasionally Great Plains is going to have something that they do. One of the big things with Great Plains is their weight. They're built well. They're really heavy duty. And, I used to have one, don't have one now, but they fit, some use cases much better. And then, we run a PH now, and really, really happy with it. But it has some limitations. So know and understand your equipment, and take care of it and maintenance properly, and you'll be happy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Al, I know we briefly touched on this for just a second, but kind of getting towards the end here. Let's talk about like a fall food plot's design, or maybe like the strategy behind it, in terms of like we said earlier. I'm actively trying to harvest animals off of this plot. I mean, we see them around here because of terrain types being so crazy. The northeast part of the state is very, mountainous, and
you put them where you can put them.
Yeah, you put them wherever you can. I guess it's boulder and nasty looking billy goat land is what we call it. But and then you've got more of the central and southern part where it's just flat clay, red.
Put it wherever you want to put it.
Wherever you want to put it. That's right. So I guess with that spirit, we've seen guys that make like the long strip plots, or even the horseshoe looking type stuff where you've got something that's coming out in the middle of that plot. Is there a specific shape to a plot that you like, or that if all things are, if it's a blank slate and you can make it however you want it to look, is there a specific design to those that you like better than others?
I've never got into the food plot architecture all that much, and that's just honestly probably my own bias of like we're in southeastern Ohio, so like it's very similar. And you're in the foothills of Appalachia, so you don't have very many flat surfaces, right? Like you got a handful, and it's big timber, so your limiting food source is green. I mean, we have thousands of acres of clear cuts around, so like truly the limiting is green. So you're just going to put food wherever you can.
Yeah.
So where I focus is from a hunting perspective, right? Because I have some fields I plan I don't even hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I don't necessarily want to, but like I just like giving to the deer. Like I want them to know, okay, it's close. It's close to bedding. They can come in, they can feed, they can feel safe. Nothing's going to bother them. There's no box blind there to bother them. There's nothing. Like it gets planted and it gets left alone unless I'm going to change a camera out or batteries, excuse me, on a camera or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing to compare camera data on usage of a plot like that versus a plot that gets hunted more often. But my biggest thing when I look at food plots is access. I don't care if you make it donut shaped.
Right.
I don't, honestly, I have some buddies that, especially if you're hunting private farms, I think I'm not knocking, like there's such a movement in like mobile hunt, and that's amazing. These guys are super mobile and they go, I think it's so cool, but like, I think it's very different than if you're hunting a box blind on a private farm. It's like, I've had buddies come to my place and they're like, dude, this is only like 50 yards or 100 yards, not even 100 yards off the road. I'm like, well, first off, that's a dirt road that gets very little traffic. Second off, I'm like, the wind is going to be perfect. Your entire access route in. Third off, you can get up into this box blind with deer in the field and they won't know you're there because it's tucked into this hedgerow. And then, like, I don't care, like I said, if it's shaped like a golf club, which in this case it kind of is,
Right.
I just want to maximize. So my goal, not saying it's right, wrong, or different, I want to maximize the food, good quality food on the landscape. So if I can increase the food with good access, that's where I plan on hunting.
Yeah. You touched on something that and of course, this will probably be hot take to some of these guys that's really in on it. And look, all the big guys are, but food plot architecture, like you say, I believe has gone too far. It's more of, to me, I mean, this is just my opinion from a biologist standpoint and putting food on the ground. It's gotten more to do with look what we did and how cool this looks versus how useful this actually is. Mm-hmm. Now, if you've got the implements, you've got the time, then by all means, have at it. It's cool. But I think a lot of it has gotten overkill.
Well, I'll tell you what my food plot architecture is, and I'm not all that well versed on the term even, to be honest with you. I've heard it thrown around. I'm not really sure even how you would define it other than, some of these plans get to be pretty robust. But like, to me, okay, if I got a ridge, I killed a deer. You guys have seen pictures of Dozer, right? 7.5-year-old buck. I killed him last year on a really junky
stud
quality food source. And I equate a lot of the success to that is that particular, it's about just under 3 acres, let's say 2.8 acres. The back half of that particular field is a clear cut. I mean, cut to the ground. We cut everything. And so it's thick on both sides of that. So it's a bridge and it drops off pretty steep. On both sides of that, it's seen nothing but a steel. And I mean, we've been cutting hard. Every mid-story beech, every crooked maple, everything that is not a chestnut oak has been getting cut hard on both sides. And it's a mixture, flush cut, hinge cut. I don't care. And also backpack sprayed with on some of the stuff doing mostly basil bark. We've done a little bit of hacking spray, mostly basil bark on a couple of the, some of the beech trees. There's not a huge market for beech in Ohio. There's a little bit, and some are just gigantic. So we've thinned some hickory. We've cut a ton of maple, and we've cut a ton of beech on these steep hillsides. So now these hillsides are cut, and I still have quite a bit to the north to still do. I just one or two guys, you can only do so much, but we still got a lot of cutting to do. And then on the south, you got a 6 acre mid-story removal. So for anybody, you're basically cutting everything that's in the mid-story. So that's not in the crown of an oak tree, you're cutting. So the amount of browse that you can produce in that 6 acres is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Butts up to a 3 acre clear cut, and down below that, it's a 17 acre NRCS TSI coal tree removal. So any crooked poplar that's not a money tree, any oaks that are crooked, that aren't producing acorns or are crowded by a more desirable oak, we went through there with the state forester, we marked them, and we cut that about 2 years ago. So you take just that little area, you got almost 25, 30 acres of secondary successional habitat that, unless it's wintertime and we're running saws, nobody's going to do.
Yeah.
So to me, that's food plot architecture. It's about proximity to good security cover and additional, because again, deer are browsers. I mean, or excuse me, concentrate selectors. So they want to come up and they'll be eating on this and eating on this and eating on pokeberry, and then they're going to get into your food plot where you're like, my access was perfect. Then you kill them. I mean, so that's how I look at it versus being like, oh, I want to put this here. And I mean, again, I think it just comes down to access and how things lay out. And there are parts of the farm where I just simply don't hunt.
Yeah. And I probably do need to clarify a little bit. And I'm speaking more for us down here where we don't have giant expanses of open ground. Now, obviously, if you're in the Midwest or somewhere you've got 100-acre fields everywhere or 50-acre fields, then by all means, yes, get fancy plant things. But folks that are trying to do it, here in the Southeast, where they go clear cut, a 30-acre patch because they want to make something look cool, well, that's fine. But if you back out on your aerial photo and look, you've probably spent a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of money doing something that wasn't necessary. Now, if it's still a goal and you've got the time and money, have at it.
Yeah. And that's what I was hitting on earlier. I mean, if you have a big field like that and you're trying to get real fancy, again, I'm not trying to sell as seed, but I do think that you have to consider, you got a big field because you're out in the Midwest. Like, does it make sense to have it all in food, or should we have some native grasses in there? Should we have, should we get some CRP dollars, right? Like, could I plant 15 acres of food and do get some CRP dollars and maybe cut some trails or something through it, if you want to get fancy from the design perspective. Yes. But to me, that's where that we'll go back to, I need to pet in a little 3-foot circle. I'm just kidding. You'll start selling exclusion fences. But all joking aside, like, that's really where it can tell you a lot. Do you have, what do we want to balance? So that would be my tip. But I mean, the best thing you can do in timber country, and we don't use a lot of fire yet. I'm really working to try to get with our state forester, potentially in the next 5 years on my place, which would be really cool because it's kind of like unheard of in southeastern Ohio right now. Western Ohio, they burn a lot of CRP. Southeastern Ohio, woodland settings, they don't do a lot of burning right now. And but with all of that being said, the best thing you can do is understand your herbicides for woodland treatment, and also running a chainsaw next to or adjacent to food plots. I guarantee you're going to have a lot better quality food plots and a lot more. You can funnel deer down with hinge cuts where you can cut along an edge and have almost like a fence, if you don't have fences. I mean, there's so many neat things you can do with that while feeding deer and keep giving them cover. I think a lot of people, that would be the kind of food plot architecture I would be interested in doing more of.
Yeah. Like, I know that, like, the only place I've really ever seen any real design as far as how they're laid out, up kind of in the Jackson County area, you've got two extremes. You've got river bottom and you have extreme steep, stuff. And so in some of these river bottoms, you'll see these guys planting, it may be beans or it may be corn. And then you'll see, like, this is the box blind, and it's like a lane that's cut through here, a lane that's cut through here. It's just so it gives you kind of some angles and stuff. And it's like, the idea is that they can't just look out in that field and just see each other. They have to kind of move around and stuff. So, I could see where something like that makes sense, but I'm kind of with you. Like, I don't care if it's the shape of a donut or the shape of a whatever. It doesn't really matter. It's just getting it out there.
Yeah, you definitely need to maximize the amount of time they're out there, from the architecture standpoint of getting bucks to come into the field.
Right.
I mean, and cross it and spend more time in the open.
Yep.
But, I genuinely believe you can go a little far with that.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the biggest thing, again, like I said, I do think you probably will see more deer on fields that are close, closer proximity, the closest to bedding that you can
Yes.
get, the more deer, because we have a couple spots that are just, I mean, in perfect locations. And you can almost sit there all day long. It's not uncommon to get up in the stand, say 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the fall, and be up there for 2 minutes and send a text to whoever's in that, go, first deer's out. Because they literally just pop out of these thickets and they eat and they go right back. So I do think sometimes, like if you get them too wide, there can be some downsides. Deer don't want to be out to where they're 17 jumps from a a bedding area or a cover. But in general, a lot of that, the average guy can't really control. They're not going to go in
That's
there
right.
with earth moving equipment and stuff. So I just say in most cases, get the food plan and then work on the timber and try to make it as good as you can. Remove the autumn olives, do those type of things to give you better quality cover. In our area, autumn olives are real popular, and then remove some of the less desirable trees. Get
Yeah.
some sunlight to the ground, and I think you'll be real happy with the results.
Absolutely. And another key to all of that is you can do all of this, and if you hunt the wrong way, it's not going to do you any good anyway.
Oh yeah. Oh,
So
I mean, I tell you, somebody asked me the other day, you go, what do you guys do on your farm? And we have all these cameras up, and we'll have 4 or 5 deer that we think are worth killing, let's say. I go, but a lot of those deer are only killable on a south wind, and some of them are only killable on a north
yeah,
wind for talking purposes. So if we have a north wind, we know, okay, we can set big plot. Okay, what deer has been on the south end of the farm? It's this deer or this deer. There's two deer, unless we're shooting does, right? But like there's 2 bucks that you might have a good chance of them coming in. But we just will not. I mean, we just wait them out. We just will not go and hunt a spot with a wind that's not perfect until maybe like if we know the rut's going crazy and they're running every which direction and you're like, I'm just going to try to get it. But I mean, for the most part, especially early season when deer are relatively patternable,
right.
I mean, that's been our take. There's a lot of guys who are a hell of a lot better at deer hunters than me, but we've had success trying to manage the pressure
Yep.
that way. And I've had some friends who helped me manage the farm, and they kind of didn't believe me at first. And then after a year or two, they're like, dude, I've never seen deer act so normal.
Yes.
Just act like deer.
Yeah, coming from
Yeah.
Pennsylvania hunting or West Virginia hunting or different parts of Ohio, and then they come and they're like, I've never seen a 4.5-year-old come out into a field at 4 in the afternoon and just eating on carton. And he's just like standing there like this is a Drury Brothers show or something.
Yeah.
Kidding. And I'm like, well, it's because we're not pressuring these deer.
Exactly.
So I think that's out of all things, that's very, very critical.
Yep.
For sure. For sure. Well, Al, that's pretty much we worked through most of the stuff that I had here. Jeremy, you got anything to add to or?
No, I think Al covered it better than I could. So
Good stuff, man.
Well, yeah, thank you guys so much. I mean, I really appreciate it, and I love talking deer, whether we're recording or not. It's been great working with you guys, and absolutely love talking deer with you guys, and I really appreciate you having me on.
yeah, absolutely.
Man. We got some stuff brewing. Hopefully for even for part of deer season, and even maybe after the season's over with, that might throw at you. And hopefully, if it all works, we got fingers and toes crossed over here big time. If all that goes well, but if it does, then we have some cool stuff. We might be able to get you to head south for a weekend or so.
All right, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Awesome.
Thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate it. And if any users have questions, reach out to us. Vitalize Seed. I think you guys tag us all the time, and
Yep.
we're on all major Instagram, social media, I guess I should say. And then our website's just Vitalize Seed. Contact us is my cell phone. Call, text, email. Jared's email's on there. So if you guys have questions, reach out.
And y'all, for the listeners, I've worked with most of the large seed companies through the years. I can't say enough how good y'all's response is when people have questions. I can't say it enough. If you have a question, you've got concerns, you reach out to these folks, and you're going to get an answer quick.
Yep.
And that's really impressive because I know y'all are busy, y'all are covered up, but the amount of care that you guys display with your customers is phenomenal.
No doubt.
Well, I always say we don't have customers, we have friends, and we really do try to stick by that.
Yeah.
We've listened to the customers, we added bulk pricing, we have free shipping, we include an inoculant in every bag of seed
Mm-hmm.
that's humic based as well as rhizobium based. We actually added another species to the mix this year, but we didn't dilute the mix at all. It's still 55% grains. We added Persian enhanced clover, which looks like alfalfa, but it's a little bit easier to grow. It just does a really nice job. So there's a lot of great options out there, and it's not lost on us when people give us an opportunity to earn their business. And whether it's reading a soil test and going through a full soil fertility plan like we do for some professional growers, all the way to the guy who's a weekend warrior, and we just love doing it. So if we can help with anything, I really do enjoy it. It's a passion of mine, and I appreciate you guys giving me a platform to talk about it a little bit.
Absolutely.
Oh man, look, we would certainly not be where we are at without you, and we appreciate just kind of the sharing. I mean, look, we work with a lot of different brands, I guess you'd say, and it's just cool that when we put a piece of content out there, if it's remotely valuable, most of the time Vitalize is going to be the first one that shares it, and puts it up on their stories and stuff like that. So we really appreciate that too.
Oh yeah, I try to share everything. That's what makes the world go round. I tell people all the time. We're all in this together.
That's
We're
right.
all trying to. Jeremy had a post where he planted a different type of seed. I'm like, some people get all tore up. I'm like, listen, he's planting our stuff too. Like this is we're all in this together. We're all learning, and that's what we really strive to do. Is we really want to learn and continue to learn. That's why I'm interviewing PhDs in soil science, right? Like, because I want to be able to tell people unequivocally we have done research and then some. And we're trying to continue to learn. And that's where giving soil amendments and stuff, it's probably not always going to be the cheapest route. I'm not going to tell you just go blindly put triple 13 down at 300 pounds the acre. But I promise you, the information we give is going to be as scientifically accurate as we can possibly muster. So that's really important to us to help people. And obviously with our partners, if it's as simple as sharing a story or sharing to the story, it's a no-brainer, man. We appreciate you guys so much.
Oh man, we appreciate it. And listen, guys, and just like Jeremy said, reach out. You have any questions? Just talk blends, talk about timing, talk about any of that type of stuff as far as when this stuff needs to go in the ground, whatever. They love to talk about it. So
Absolutely.
Reach out to us. We're not nearly obviously the spiel that Al just gave right there. I'm like, I am too stupid to talk to Al. Like, dude.
Well,
That's not true at all.
When I get a soil test, and I look and I go, I need some background on this right here, because I'm pretty good, but I'm not their level.
Right.
But Al's always great to help me out, and I'll say this about soil tests to our listeners: all soil tests are not created equal. Do a little background on who you're going to send your test to and what information they give you, because there are some that lack a lot of vital information that you really need if you're going to do these things right. And Al said, just pointed that it's not always the cheapest route to do things right, and their product is not the cheapest out there either, but it works. The support is worth it. The diversity you get and the additive support and like you said, the humics and things like that come along with it, they're doing it right. Mm-hmm. It's not a bag, and nothing against the big guys. It's not a bag you go pick up in Walmart and you get no support, you get nothing extra, and you're not paying for a shiny, expensive bag either.
That's right. No doubt.
Yeah, I will say the last thing I do want to mention, I'm sure we will get questions on this. We get a lot of questions on people go, hey, I want to buy this. I'm in Mississippi, or I want to buy this. I'm in Florida, and they want to buy it online. They go, and, I think it says on there, but we ship same day or next day. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we're not perfect. No company is. We're always trying to get better. But I mean, if you order the seed, before 12 Eastern time, it'll likely go that day or the next day. Mm-hmm. If you order on a Sunday, it'll go Monday. So just keep that in mind. We ship FedEx ground or UPS, mostly FedEx ground, 90% of the time. So in most of the Eastern United States, you're getting it in 2 to 3 days.
Yeah.
So I just make that because I can't believe how many questions I get where people go, "Hey, do I need to order like a month and a half in advance?" I'm like, I mean, it'd be nice, but no, you don't. Like we're shipping,
Sure.
we're shipping as quickly as we possibly can. And if you need anything, just reach out.
Awesome.
Absolutely, guys.
Well, guys, yeah, obviously we would really appreciate it if you would go follow Vitalize and engage with us too. You can find us on all social platforms. You can listen to the podcast anywhere that podcasts can be streamed. If you haven't already done so, please like, share, follow, subscribe, all the things. It really helps us out to be able to continue to do this for you and to provide hopefully valuable information for the questions and topics that you guys have asked us to cover. So we want to keep this thing going, and we've had a ball, and we are actually rapidly approaching 2 years old. It's
Yep.
weird. In October, actually the opening day of bow season will be 2 years for us. So
I'll be celebrating at home.
yeah. So we really appreciate you guys, and like I said, reach out if you have any questions, land concerns. We'd love to help there. We got a team of guys that are not only biologists, but they're also realtors, so we can help in that space too.
Yep, and we're also expanding our reach. So just you folks here in the deep South, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, primarily, maybe Florida, you guys reach out to us quite a bit. We now have some relationships with some guys in on up into Tennessee, Arkansas, Kentucky. So if you're looking for a quality vetted biologist, forester that you're looking to work with up in those part of the world, we can kind of help get you connected to some of those folks.
Absolutely. But guys, we really appreciate it, and we will see you on the next one.